Hello, everybody. It's Mecha. Ace is over in the corner making stuff with earbuds in, so she's not even hearing me referencing her. But today we are revamping our storyboard tutorial, and we're gonna split it up into two chunks. They're not gonna be long chunks, and they're not gonna be too intense, but I do feel like there's two distinct sides to storyboarding and choreographing fight scenes and that kind of thing. And I don't feel like it would be beneficial to talk about them both. Those two things are storyboard drawing, which we're going to talk about here, and the other is more of the direction of actual video, film, and all that. Because one, like I said, is based off of fundamental drawing skills, and the other is going to be, like I said, almost, even if you're doing the drawing and sequencing it that way, you're still looking at it as an editor almost. So, like I said, we're going to start with talking about storyboard drawing, and the primary things can be boiled down into a couple of simple tips, and it's really just these guys here. When you draw for storyboards, you want clarity. And what do I mean by clarity? I mean clarity in geometry and form. So when you're drawing, even if it's sketchy, because one of the things that my teachers always said when we were talking about storyboard stuff was that you don't need to draw good, you need to draw clear. So something like this here, one of these is a better illustrated drawing. One has lighting, one has refined lines and all this. But you can see what was going on in the other one because the silhouettes are distinct, the shapes are standing out from each other, so on and so forth. And if you try to sketch so that all of this information is in there, you might get something so if we're drawing our Flopsy boy, this guy right here, his shapes there are basically just circle for head, square, arms are coming up, and then just verifying the geometry. Maybe a little bit to be like his eyes are going that way. A little something to define the geometry of the head. And really, like, this is all I needed to get going to the next phase. Now, you cannot go from this to a final piece necessarily. And if you want to go further, you can. But I would not do anything else on this layer. The next thing you'd be doing is, like I said, come up, start cleaning up and matching to the model more. You'd bring your model sheet in. Start doing this. Be like, okay, his ears are coming down here. And yeah, you'd be doing it that way. Is kind of the big part there. You start figuring out, again, more of the geometry and depth. But if you try to look at this from just a simple illustration sketch, because remember, storyboard, I mean, for HitCam, we have probably almost 100 different shots and frames that I can't even imagine the number that we have right now. But, we can't be doing more than this for every shot, because you need to get the whole thing board out first. So, the big don't when you're doing a storyboard, especially the initial drawing, is to try to get all of this information. You're trying to get shading in there and everything. So, what you don't want to do is something well, that's right there. You don't want to be undoing a whole lot, especially in your early phases. And then you're like, oh, but he's a cube. Start getting this in here. Like this and this isn't bad drawing or anything, but it's not the goal if what you want to be able to focus on is choreography, or again, actually framing a shot. You don't want to be going over or under everything too much. Yeah, again, this isn't necessarily bad, it's just getting messier. And then like, oh, I need to make sure that I have his markings in there and get those in. There's also markings here and here and here. These aren't really important for what we're doing. Like if I'm going to draw Flopsy's mohawk in here, I mean, you can see it's basically just... I just did that. Just enough so I know later when I draw it. And that's really kind of the biggest thing here. You know, your drawing should be clear stick figures is kind of the idea here. And then, I mean, all I did was just, because I worked in layers, so Arrow here was on her own layer, so I can move her around when because I'm working in Clip Studio, I can animate the layers very easily and get my actual animation started from my storyboards, so I know how many drawings I really need to do and everything. And so just giving them really just a basic single flat fill. Again, that kind of helps you see like, oh, yeah, there's some clear silhouette going on here. Like that already, I think, shows something. And like I said, that's clarity. And that alone is a priceless thing to learn. And there's a lot of good, there's a good Big Hero 6 shot out there that you should be able to find from the Disney show that they did. And it shows, again, the difference of a character with all the details and a character that's just clear for your shot and posing. And so like I said, when I'm talking about clarity, I'm talking about the basic shapes of these characters. So if I were to... Again, like right here. And these shots can be cleaned up. These were just thumbnails. But you should be able to see, okay. Got box. And then we have arm coming in. And arm going that way. Like that. That shows you something. That shows you the essential information. I mean, up here. As long as you get enough, say, okay, there's a character, he's looking up this way. And there's these dudes being little jerks to someone up here. That's your essential. When you go in and clean it up and actually animate, draw all over it, that's the biggest thing. If you're working on some big fight scene animation project, or even if it's not a fight scene, just if it's a longer animation project, you're going to draw all over your stuff so many times. Storyboarding is your sketching. Let's see if I can find. That's a piece I'm going to talk about later, but so when you're doing it, something you can start before you start storyboarding. Depending on like your character designs or everything, but what I'm trying to get into is know the building blocks of your characters. Most characters have their little circle head. Maybe a jaw. This character, since he has this kind of skeletal thing going on, I really accentuate the collarbone and those backbones and muscles. And then basically boof, because I still want him to have some muscle to him. So he's basically just nyeh and nyeh. That's a fundamental shape I can use for him. Then I know I come out to a joint, and then some anatomical nonsense. So I know that, and then this is like this weird toothy mess here. If I look at, again, like that right there is kind of showing what's going on. And these guys, they're just basic people bodies. So you have, you know, some rectangular prisms with limbs coming out. That right there, you know, working from that. So now when I need to make him throw a punch, I don't have to draw all of his bones right away. I don't need to get his expression in right away unless that's really important. You know, when I draw, and you'll come up with your own cheats here too. A straight edge, a curved edge. And then that will come into your little hand, however you draw hands. So again, it's not a perfect thing here, but it's giving me enough to know. I can say, that's the thing. For these guys, I know that they're all connected by basically one elongated spine. So zip a boop, and then so I'm not making this messy. You know, this is enough for me to work off of, and it's easier to contort this into a pose and say, okay, he needs to bend so his body's gonna be facing this way, and he's ready to throw some kind of punch here. That's easier to contort than all of this. That's the bottom line. And then, just like anything, you can clean it up to your own wish, but you need to be clear on if you have, you know, a body, just which way is that facing? That's more important than anything else. Who's looking where? Who's interacting with who? How? You know, how can you twist the torso to show that, you know, you're above or below something? This is a high angle. So if you could see, you'd have the bottom there, and then you can't see the top, and they're turned this way. That's the important info there. And this was actually, I'll show the time lapse here, but this I started from a thumbnail. Because again, if something is clear from drawing it at a box this big, and again, if you can draw this small and get something clear across, then you can take it in and start scaling it up and refining it. But starting with these small thumbnails will let you figure out what's clear, what's not clear. And the next part is the clarity of story. What tells the story best? But before we do that, the other thing is depth and perspective. And as you see, clarity of geometry and form and depth and perspective all go into this little thing that I'm calling immersion. And that kind of just helps you suspend your feeling of disbelief. Whether we're working with fantastic sci-fi and fantasy characters, or we're just dealing with some more normal things, or if it's not even a fight, it's just, you know, maybe it's a romantic scene, they're going for a kiss, whatever. You need to not make people believe it's real necessarily, but to feel like it could be tangible. No matter what your art style is, these things will be able to help you. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of shots that I think show this really well. I mean, this one right here, I think, the reason I chose it was because I feel like it does show quite a bit of that. So if we're looking here, things that are helping the depth and perspective of this is, one, we have this big wall right here. And even here, I knew, like, okay, some kind of dramatic framing will work. And I was like, what if the wall kind of becomes the frame? Like, yeah. And when you take that into post, or when you start refining it, if you can add blur effects, things that show that it's close to the camera. And that means closer to the camera will mean bigger, darker, and moves faster. Parallax effects. So we have that. Looking up. Making it clear that we are looking up in this shot. And when I'm talking about all this perspective and everything, it doesn't mean you have to be perfectly accurate perspective. It needs to be good perspective. It needs to be solid perspective. But perfect technical perspective isn't necessarily the point. Again, your storyboards will be changed and refined over time. But get that solid foundation down. And then if you have a team, you all work together. Or if you're just kind of vibing it, just like kind of work through it. But so we knew that our vanishing point was going to be somewhere up here because we wanted to see our guy hanging up here. You can't see here because we cut him off, but here. So we needed something that shows, okay, if our wall is up there, something kind of like that. So obviously, all of the rest of the walls go out from that point. So then it's easy to just say, okay, well then, if she's right in front of the wall, we're going to have something like here, right there. Then there's a bigger guy, but since he's further away, he's not as big. And then think about and go ahead and draw the whole torso. You're not going to see it all. But again, if you could see the torso as a box, you see the bottom here. Then it comes out. Another guy here. And then a guy all the way up here. So something that we have happening here is almost like a line of action for the entire scene, which leads the eye very efficiently. You know, and then you can start going in. If you want to add tone, again, you can do that in your storyboards. We have a light source coming from over here. So this part of him is edgelit. This is edgelit. Some of this is edgelit. And then back here is all shadow. Now, theoretically, that would mean arrow here would be super dark. I decided, and again, this is where that drama thing comes in. You're playing with the bounds of realistic and dramatic. But she needed to stand out from this. Between the black wall and everything, this could have got lost real fast, and she's kind of the focal point anyway. So we made her just stand out between all of this. And again, that's the kind of power you have and you can do. As long as you're playing with it and it's clear and telling a story, that's what we need. So yeah, just going over the basics of perspective and how you can use that for character posing and interactions. And on top of that, remembering that if you have a fight, it's happening in an environment. You know, where are your characters in relation to each other? Right here. I did a few different thumbnails, and these are very early scratchy ones. So they're not really meant to be seen. And this isn't a fight, but again, it's the same concepts. Where are they? Someone is here on a couch. And we have perspective going down. So the camera is facing up. And you can see, characters fitting in that. Characters are following that for the most part. This character is literally following the edge of this wall because that's how the perspective is. And that's one of the reasons why there were some votes that this shot was the best one, because it has the most depth and you can see where everyone is the best. So again, we have a couch following the perspective here. Knowing where she is on that couch means that she'll be over here. Just using our basic character drawing. Give her some little stick figure stuff. And her feet come out there. And then we have a character behind the couch. And again, you can't have them just be stick figure straight here. I mean, you could. And that's very valid for your first things. But if you want him to add to the story, if you want him to feel like he's in that environment, who is he looking at? He was taking care of her. So his torso is twisted to look at her. And then his head turns to notice this guy. Or whatever. That's the solidity that you need. That's what we're playing off of. This is the foundation of the shot. And then this guy, he's just so in front of the camera that he makes his own perspective almost. He's like, yeah, buddies, what's up? And to show how close he is, you pretty much black him out. That's the energy, the vibe of the shot. And again, you just go through and you refine it. You make it look a little bit better. You start set dressing it. Is there a bottle spilled over here? What's going on? But as long as we can tell, oh, they're not outside clearly. We have where they're in a box. That's the big thing. For this one, I'll find it. This one, they're clearly outside in a forest. We got trees, and we have where the primary ground is. This is our set that we have to play with. All of this part is ground. People can stand on this. If someone's up here, they're either flying or they're on our little tree. And you can see, when you get really good, you can start kind of figuring out shapes without doing all the sketch over. And that's how you start going faster and knowing what's going on. And so characters, when I start to add tone into this, I'll start doing things like shroud their bottom parts in shadow. But you can see that this character is surrounded. And there's a sense of claustrophobia or danger because you see there's trees behind them. And they're cut off behind. There's some shrubbery right here. And there's a dude right in front of that shrubbery. So the only possible things that we don't know what's up is over this way and this way. But if I bring that shrubbery even around more, then maybe cover this tree up with another tree that's here in between that and this, then we know that they're cut off all around and there's stuff above them. This guy, utilize your environment. People walk down alleys, they step around trash cans. They walk down the street, they don't walk into the road. They have to jump over cars, they have to climb, they fall out of windows. These are the things that make scenes intense and add immersion. You're not just punching each other in a vacuum. So where are they? Why are they there? Is this just to increase the vibe of a fantasy setting? Are they in a throne room full of rich things that symbolize prosperity that's being torn down and crashed? Does someone break into a house? Are we invading a base? These are the things that will add the next thing, which is drama and clarity of the story. Again, intent and purpose. So if you have your fundamental drawing skills, which mean clarity of geometry and form, depth and perspective, and then you can use that to make dramatic scenes, which, I mean, that's basically what, when you watch Samurai Jack, you see Jack's eyes in those little letterbox. It's dramatic because it's focused and it has intent. This is all stuff that just comes back into each other. Really, though. So if you have these and you can start making dramatic scenes, then you need to figure out your intent and purpose. And the only way you'll discover that is, what is your story? Asking questions like, who in this scene has the power? Well, we're looking up at this guy, which makes him feel big and powerful. Even though he's really small in the frame comparatively, we're looking up at him. He's underlit. He's scary. And then this guy, he's pushing in. So if you divide up the frame, you're almost half and half. But Flopsy really only has this much of the frame, because then Arrow's here, and they're back against a wall. And the camera in this shot actually moves around quite a bit. So it starts here and then slams into them. It's pushing them back. Again, just some rough thumbnails. Because I want to see that, again, they're being pushed into this. You have this guy coming this way. Arrow and Flopsy have this. He has all of this. There's no good color for me to make this. Here we go. That doesn't work either. Pink. Okay, there we go. That's different. So he has all of this, and he's coming in on their space. And the camera follows him, and they slam into this wall. So all of this space doesn't really exist. It's not up for grabs. And they have this, and he's coming down from a high angle. Again, up means power. He's pushing them down. And on top of that, you can, at least I hope you can see, maybe I'm not as good of an artist as I think, but his arms are reaching into them. Flopsy is pushed back. And then Arrow's just sitting like, oh, fuck. So that's really what you have to play with here. And if there are more questions and we want to figure out how to convey certain energies or whatever, we'll gladly go into it. And this wasn't so much about choreography, but again, about the fundamentals of drawing to make these things clear and workable. So next time, if you guys like this and you want to see the next part, which like I said, will it be the actual choreography of a scene, mapping out the movements, that's what we're doing next time. And that will involve how you make one shot flow into the next. And again, the actual from point A to point B of it all, figuring out how things will move. But these are the things that you need. I mean, for every shot, every one of those, we're going to be having, if you have 5 shots that get you from here to here, each of those 5 shots are going to involve you drawing at least, one of these. And so if you don't have this, then you're going to be in for a very bad time as you start trying to draw and enough that you have an actual scene. So I hope you guys like this. I think I like the idea of setting up kind of like one hero or master document here and then flipping through all these. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions about any of the work, I will gladly try to answer. But yeah, this was fun. I hope this is better than the last storyboard tutorial we did. And we will see you guys next time for, like I said, some actual screen direction, I guess. Bye.